Hey, what's up? What's going on, everybody? And welcome to another episode of the Periodic Table. This is the show where we just break down the science news of the week and we learn along with you, the audience. It's just one big science classroom of fun. I'm, of course, your host, Brandon Hanna. I'm a mechanical engineer with like 9 years of experience in the aerospace field. You might know me as a host from AfterBuzz TV, the Popcorn Talk Network, or you might know me as my more mischievous side on the movie trivia Schmoedown. But I am joined by an amazing panel today. Starting off to my, got it right the first time. My left here, you're right. You might know him as a streamer, engineering cam operator for SEN in the Gucciverse. It's Dwain Burke.
Hey, everybody, I'm back.
Dwain is back. I cannot get enough Dwain, and I know that you can't either. Super happy to have you here, Dwain. It's just a blast having you on every week. I love what you bring to the show. But we also have somebody new here today. You know her and you love her from the movie trivia Schmoedown, but she also has so much experience as a nuclear reactor operator, nuclear operations instructor. I don't know entirely what all that means, but I just know it means that she's really, really qualified to be here. It's the amazing Mara Knopic. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Hello. Whether it's splitting atoms or telling other people how to do it, I have done both of those two things.
Two things that I'm afraid I probably will never have a full understanding of. It's a bummer.
It's fine.
We were talking about it before the show. It was a bummer we didn't have you on a couple weeks ago talking about nuclear fusion.
See, I like that better though, because I'm not learning along with you if we're talking about something I know too much about.
Oh, see, that's true. Mara's right on board, keeping up with the themes of this show. And we do have a fun one for you today. You might have seen this one circling the realm of social media the last few days, but we have octopuses punching fish, sometimes for no apparent reason. What is going on there? And something that I thought was really interesting, flexible devices that may help close, turn into solar panels to help charge your phone out in the wilderness. That is so much to unravel there. And our special segment is something that I'm calling the lesson of the week. What are rogue planets? There was a new rogue planet discovered, and I thought this would be a perfect time to talk about it. We're going to learn so much about that. But before we do, let's jump all the way back up to the top here. And I'm going to try to engineer and host at the same time, but I don't have a picture of a octopus here at the moment. So
I can provide one from the internet if you'd like.
No, that's okay. I got the other two topics lined up. I think people know what octopuses look like. I'm learning, people. I'm learning. It's very hard. I don't know how Dwain does it every week with his programming. Shout out to Dwain. But yeah, octopuses punching fish for no discernible reason sometimes, as it seems. Deliberately, sometimes there's reasons, sometimes there's not. I don't know if I'm going to do a rundown of this one. Let's just jump to Dwain first on this. Dwain, what did you think of this headline when you first saw it? And did anything from this article in particular stick out to you?
As usual, I probably took away something that wasn't really the main takeaway or wasn't meant to be the point. But I
love it.
My biggest takeaway from this article in particular is that I guess humans aren't the only people that show aggression for no reason, which we've been kind of like, it's a going thing like in high school biology is like humans are the only species that do certain things for no apparent reason. And now that's not so true. Has the animal kingdom caught up to us, or were we just arrogant and didn't really understand what we were dealing with?
Yeah, it says here in the article that, octopus is a solitary creature, and sometimes they might take part in hunting parties of fish for one of a multitude of reasons. It might clue them into the location of their next meal, of their prey, or it can they're trying to control where the fish are swimming by punching them, apparently, or it can be a form of punishment. It says for some reason these octopus want to punish these fish. Mara, what are your thoughts on octopus feeling that these fish need to be punished?
Well, I mean, I think that most fish require punishment, but the thing that is fascinating to me because one of my most favorite animals is the mantis shrimp, and it can see colors we don't even understand are there. And there's so much about the oceans that we don't know. And I think we do know quite a lot about the octopus, but what if there's something we have not yet understood about its biology? Maybe it is experiencing a sense that we can't comprehend or we don't understand, and maybe that's part of a stimulus for it, or maybe they're just jerks, like Dwain said. I think that's really neat. I like the questions. We don't know.
Yeah, it does pose a lot of questions, which is really what science is all about at the end of the day. Even I think in the article it says that researchers, they don't entirely know what is going on. It's a very rare occurrence for them to even witness octopuses punching fish. And I'm actually going to see if there's a video of it, and I would love to share my screen. So I'm going to try to do that right
I believe
now.
in you.
Thank you. Let's see. Is it this button here? Let's see.
I watched this video about 30 times in a row because I couldn't stop laughing.
It's a good one for sure. Let's see. Trying to kill this dead air. And I don't know what's going on. Am I sharing my screen
There
right
you
now?
go. Yep, you got
You
it.
guys can see this? Okay. Yep. Awesome.
The overlay is still over it. But...
Oh no, I did that one time as well too.
There you go. Right. Now you're good.
Awesome. Thanks for the. Here we go. This is octopuses punching fish. This is. I feel like this first one's more a little tap, and this one is a bit more obvious here.
Yeah, I think the article mentioned something where some of them are like little tiny, like bops, and then the others are like full wind-up haymakers, I think is maybe even the term that they had used.
Yeah, that looks like a haymaker to me. And that one more of a little nudge, I feel like.
See, I'm curious if they will ever be able to observe, because they have independent control over all their limbs, if they can punch 8 fish at once.
That would have to be quite the situation. So there we go. That's it. That is octopuses punching fish. It's pretty comical, actually. I think it even said that the researcher observing this tried not to choke with their scuba gear on from laughing too hard.
The next time I go diving, I am going to be looking specifically for this and only this. I will not enjoy any more of the ocean floor, but this one thing. Science can be funny sometimes. This almost makes me want to actually become a scuba diver. I feel like I'm one dive away from my certification.
Oh. All right, so next time we're gonna have Mara in the field observing the octopuses for herself.
I'm gonna need a budget including $35 for me to get obscure Japanese gummy candies.
I think we can allow that in the budget. What do you say, Dwain?
I think it's in the budget.
All right, so yeah, because there's so many questions, there's not too much to dive in there. I just thought this was
dive in.
I didn't even realize I was doing that. There's not too much to scuba in there, you know. So I just thought that was a really fun story. I saw it, circling around the interwebs. So any closing thoughts on octopuses punching fish before we move on?
Nope. I've got nothing.
I mean, I think that we need to keep our finger on the pulse and follow this. And you will have to invite me back when we know more, whether it be 7 days from now or 70 years from now, because I feel like this is a hot button science topic that demands explanation.
I think it does. I think we need to allocate some resources. We need to get on the phone with NASA. We need to take this seriously.
We can call Ed Harris and James Cameron. We can get it taken care of.
That's who we need to call. It's James Cameron. I love that. That's a great point. So I was trying to somehow do a transition where I tie James Cameron into solar power, but I got nothing. So I'm just gonna say before we talk into solar power, everyone watching, please, if you can, like this video. If you enjoy watching this show every week, subscribe to this channel. You know, hit that little notification bell. Do what you got to do. Leave a comment down below if you're so generous to do so. Let us know your thoughts. You know, that all helps with the algorithm and all that good stuff to help get more views on this show, because we absolutely love doing it every week and love, like I said, just being in this giant virtual classroom with all of you and learning about science every week. And so something that I thought was really interesting this week, we could probably really get into this one, is flexible devices may help close solar power your screens, is the article headline. So basically, tiny little solar panels that you could wear on your clothes. Mara, I want to start with you. What was your initial reaction to this article? Were you even aware at all that this was something in the works in the scientific and engineering community?
I could be conflating the two things, but I think that there was a business pitched on Shark Tank that had a similar concept for, I think it was geared toward campers, or something like that. So I was kind of vaguely aware, or at least at a minimum, my brain convinced me that I was aware of something like this. But we'll get into it much, much later, because I'd like to hear Dwain's initial thoughts. But I have complicated feelings about rampant solar power use.
Oh, I would love to hear those. I have no idea what to expect, so this should be fun. Yeah, you know, you brought up the camping thing. It must be the same thing or a very similar piece of technology, because the opening of this article says, "Imagine backpacking alone in the wild when your phone battery dies. No worries, your jacket can power it up." So yeah, Dwain, let's jump over to you now. What do you think about these wearable solar panels that are interwoven into your fabric that can help you charge your phone, whatever you need when you're out in the wilderness?
So again, I'm having a very different perspective for this. I spent 11 and a half years packing. The two heaviest things into my pack are water and batteries. And I immediately thought of the military implications of what this could be. Being able to charge things on the go from, you know, a solar panel that you're wearing that's light, flexible, eliminates the need for, you know, pounds and pounds of batteries to be carried, allowing troops to do it in a wide array of different things differently. But that's initially what I thought, because my biggest concern for the past 11 and a half years was how much weight could I put on my back?
Yeah, especially my thought when you mentioned the military is like communications equipment, because it's already on its own so heavy that adding spare battery stuff, because I was not a combat veteran. I was a sit and push buttons veteran. So they could already maybe have something like, who knows what DARPA has had people do, but maybe they have something like this. But if they don't, that application would be incredible.
Yeah, I think for me, my biggest takeaway, like as an engineer, is they mentioned something called a solar concentrator. You know, I learned obviously like about like, you know, like at least a base understanding of different types of energy, you know, generation, like, you know, solar power, wind power, you know, hydroelectric power, you know, coal, gas, nuclear power. Even they even have you know, tidal power and wave power, as long as it doesn't upset I can't talk right now. Upset the octopuses. See, I'm so terrified of getting punched by an octopus. I'm stumbling over my own words. But yeah, I missed out on learning about solar concentrators in school. I thought this was a really interesting concept, that it's a device that actually increases the efficiency of these solar panels, because these solar panels are like interwoven into fabric and they're so small, they're really, really, really inefficient. And regular solar panels that everyone like knows about, like solar farms, ones that go on your roof, are already not that efficient. So to see that these are even less efficient, but there are these solar concentrators that can kind of amplify the efficiency. I thought that was a really cool concept. But I would love to get back to you, Mara, and hear your thoughts on solar power.
Well, here's the thing. I'm not anti-solar power, not at all. Anything that we can do within reason that can kind of offset our carbon emissions and try to help save the planet is always a good thing. But even like nuclear, because there is nuclear waste generated, everything in moderation until we find that perfect thing. Because the rare earth minerals needed to power, like for solar cells for their construction, the places that you have to go to get them, you can impact the biodiversity there because they're amazing places because no one has gone there. So they have this amazing preserved ecosystem. Also, the labor uses required to get some of these things, it's very unethically done. Imagine someone who is not old enough to be working for pennies, if they're lucky, that sort of thing. And also, just the idea that solar cells don't last very long. So there's also just a lifetime of use issue. So I have complicated feelings, though, again, everything in moderation helps. But I think that this is fascinating specifically because of what you said, Brandon, is that concentrator, because that was something that didn't exist. Because my basic initial education was electrical engineering. So electrical theory, etc. So it would include kind of basic concepts like that. Never heard of it before until yesterday. So I agree with you. This is kind of revolutionary and it's fascinating. And one other thing too, the fashion industry, terrible for the environment. So this is like two birds with one amazing solar powered stone.
Yeah, wow. And that's a great way to tie together a topic that we actually had on this show not too long ago. And I think those are really interesting points. You know, everything is kind of like a double-edged sword in a way where it's like, yes, like we're solving this one problem, but there's these other problems that also need to be addressed with the way things are manufactured, especially with solar power. But yeah, you know, like you said, like the solar concentrator thing I think is really cool. I like have some like little notes down here on like how they kind of like talk about in the article about how they work. And it says that the team made a flexible solar concentrator from an unusual material called APCN, which is short for amphiphilic polymer co-network. And it can let water and oxygen move through it, and it's breathable and comfortable to wear, which makes it perfect for clothing. But they also say that the material is already being used to make some contact lenses. So as someone who wears glasses and has in the past spent many hours and days wearing contact lenses and having them dry out in my eyes, I'm very curious to see the progress of these contact lenses and how good they are, because my eyes get very red from wearing contact lenses. I don't know if Dwain, you've ever had a similar experience, or if you've stuck just to glasses.
I refuse to wear contacts because of that problem.
Yeah.
I just don't want to deal with it. So I only wear glasses at this point. But hey, if they came out with contacts that don't cause that problem, I'd love to wear them. But I was really intrigued by the dyes, the phosphorescent dyes that they were using, and how they can use dyes to capture specific wavelengths and then output specific wavelengths at a greater intensity. I was like, this is really, really interesting. And I think that it also gives another, going back to the episode that you were talking about the fashion industry and the way that you dye clothing, it gives another little wrinkle to that discussion that we had, as here's a way that they could dye clothing differently that will also lessen the environmental impact of making clothes.
Yeah, the dyes, the dye aspect of it, I also thought was super interesting, because like there's just like they're like they said, like they're kind of mixing oil and water here. It's this material is made up of two different polymers that do not want to work together, but they have chemically forced them to bond with one another. And so it says that it's at the nano, or so at the nanoscale, which is a billionth of a meter, the polymers reshuffle to minimize contact, and they form interconnected puddles, which I thought was a really interesting way to describe it, of water loving polymer and water hating polymer. And these puddles are less than 1,000th of the width of a human hair. So I'm just thinking of like an actual puddle of water being that small. I don't know if I could wrap my brain around that. But going back to the dyes, it says they added green dye to the water loving puddles and red dye to the water hating ones. And they absorb light at one wavelength and emit it at a different one, which I think is absolutely crazy. And going back to these solar concentrators, it says that it boosts the efficiency of these solar cells by 24%, which is a lot more than I expected. So I thought all this was very surprising and unexpected. Mara, did you come across anything in this article that surprised you?
Well, yeah, I mean, exactly what you were saying. It's the way that those polymers, the way they've applied chemically allowed them to work together. It's kind of like the chemical version of an electrical transformer, which is also turning my brain into a pretzel in a really good way. But I'm curious to see what other applications can they develop in the future for this or other industries that can involve chemically forcing two polymers or any two substances that would need to interact for a reason that normally would oppose each other, how they can essentially force them to do so. And I think that's neat.
Yeah, I think that's a really great way to put it, actually. It's this chemical microscopic version of an electrical transformer, which, yeah, like that also turns my head into a pretzel as well. Brain, Dwain, how's your pretzel brain doing? See, I'm already messed up.
I ate a pretzel rod right before we started too, because I needed to try to eat something, and pretzels are usually, I can keep those down. So pretzels everywhere, people.
I mean, it's super interesting, and it just makes me wonder, when are they going to take things like this out of like energy? Because that's where we put a lot of this focus, but you can apply it in so many different places. Like they were talking about, one of the main applications of this would be in space, but space energy, great. But think about, like, you could use it for creating spacesuits. You could use it for creating the coatings that go on space shuttles. You can use it for like windows on the space. Like you could have the windows of the space shuttles are generating energy for the space shuttle. Like it's so the possibilities are endless. Like it's crazy where my brain is going on what we could use this stuff for.
Yeah, it's almost like, and this, like, honestly, like going back to what Mara said about maybe she saw this on an episode of Shark Tank. I wouldn't be surprised if these investors are using the clothing aspect for camping as kind of like a proof of concept, but they have these like larger ideas in mind of, using them for space purposes and for military purposes and bigger picture type stuff, where this technology can really be implemented in like a lot of unique ways that on the surface we may not fully even think about, except for Dwain, because he loves thinking outside the box on this show.
Well, and he's absolutely right, though, because in the Navy, we love multi-purposing our energy. So the nuclear reactor makes the propeller turn and moves the ship, but it also powers turbine generators that power electrical systems on the ship, and the steam from the secondary system of the plant propels the catapults to shoot planes off the ship. So we use one energy source for three completely different purposes. So the idea of a space application being able to harness this and utilize it for at least one or two different purposes than we'd already have an energy source for is completely within the guidelines of what the government already tries to do in other ways. So it's not even outside the box. You've created the box.
Created the box, and it's today Boxing Day, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
It is Boxing Day, yes.
So we've all come. We're on brand, if anything. So
I didn't even plan that. Because I went to bed at 6 a.m. So it was already Boxing Day when I went to sleep. So the fact that it's still Boxing Day is great.
It's great. One of the best days of the year, especially over at the PJ Campbell Network, I imagine, where there's a new episode of Box, I believe, coming out. So there's a free plug for PJ Campbell, who has been on this show before, and I'm sure we'll have him on again. But yeah, this one was pretty crazy to me. Any closing thoughts from either Mara or Dwain before we move on to our special segment of the week?
I really hope that they make it in child sizes because that's the only clothes I can wear.
That's fair.
I got nothing to top that.
All right, that's that. I guess that's time we move on to our special segment, which I'm calling the lesson of the week, and I will, for the first time ever, promptly show a graphic here of a rogue planet. That's what we're talking about. What are rogue planets? Apparently, even how the scientific community defines a planet is in question, which is something I would love to get into when discussing the article on hand. And of course, guys, links to all the articles that we discuss on the show are in the description down below. But let's talk about rogue planets. Right off the bat here in this article, not all planets orbit stars. Some zip through the galaxy all on their own. And astronomers have found apparently the smallest of these rogue planets yet, which is roughly the mass of Earth, which I think is really interesting that an Earth-sized rogue planet is the smallest one to date that has been discovered. So what are rogue planets? So to my understanding, rogue planets are planets that may have been part of a solar system before, and somehow they no longer orbit a star. Something caused them to eject out of orbit, and they just wander the universe on their own, and it makes them really, really hard to observe. I think there's even something in this article. If I look through my notes, there was I'm trying to find, I think they did mention like roughly how many have been discovered. I can't seem to find it right now, but it's not as many as I expected. Yeah. So Mara, what are your overall thoughts on rogue planets? Were you super aware of what they were before reading this article? Did you learn anything new? I think I would love to hear that.
Oh, I learned lots of new things because this article is fantastic, and the rabbit hole just emerged for me, and then I went in a deep dive of other things about rogue planets, or as I like to call them, rebels without a star. But yeah, I mean, I think they're fascinating for exactly the same reason you said, and I didn't realize that they were all generally like Jupiter sized. I actually didn't think of them as being really, really heavy and massive. So that was a big misconception that I had just thrown into my head. I guess because they were rogue planets, I assumed they were like me and like tiny and scrappy. So I like the idea that they have no idea exactly how they create themselves or how they become rogue planets. They have these theories, but that's another thing, kind of like the ocean. Space is all about theories because we just don't know. And the science questions, guys, the science questions.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions to ponder here, and I did find it. It was fewer than 24 planets in our galaxy that are considered to be rogue planets. Rebels without a star, I think, as Mara said, which I think is perfectly put. But yeah, there's a lot of debate here about what exactly is a planet. Some people say that it has to orbit a star. Others are trying to get the scientific community to have a different definition to include these rogue planets as actual planets straight up. Dwain, what are your thoughts? Do rogue planets deserve to be considered regular planets? And did anything in this article catch your attention?
I mean, I guess, sure, why not? They can be planets. Like, who are we to judge? But I think, like, the most interesting part about this for me was, I think it's later in the article where they talk about maybe these things sort of, the impetus for them is the chaos of younger solar systems. And maybe at one point our solar system was not 9 planets. Maybe it was like 12 planets and we lost a couple along the way. Like that is really interesting to me.
R.I.P. Pluto.
Like it's really interesting to me that is, there could have been so much more in our solar system than there is now that we are aware of. And also, it kind of cripples my mind to think about what would have to have a large enough gravitational pull to pull something the size of a planet out of the gravitational orbit of something as large as the sun. Like that's really mind-blowing that there's things out there that are that large.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
All right, no, you go ahead, Mara.
From a nomenclature standpoint, I know it's silly to focus on the semantics of that issue, but I think that, again, how we should not judge. That's the perfect way to say it. But nomenclature evolves as science evolves. Like a telephone was generally referred to as something that was a corded device that connected you remotely from one place to another place. But now we have the subset of cellular phones that have no cord that also connect us from one place to another. So, I mean, sure, they kind of call them, I believe, exoplanets is also another term that they've kind of allowed to be used for them rather than like rogue planets like the trendy one. But why can't we just make them like the cellular phones of planets? I think that we should be able to do that.
Yeah, I agree, and I think I also agree with there are some people, as it says in this article, that think, you know what, forget where the planet is now, like whether or not it's just rogue flying through the universe on its own or whether it orbits a star, that doesn't matter. That doesn't make it a planet. What makes it a planet is how it was formed. So if and they say if that a planet is anything big enough that its gravity molds itself into a ball, so not clumpy or lumpy like an asteroid or a comet, but like a spherical ball that we all know planets to at least appear to be. Obviously, topography and all that, Earth's got mountains and valleys and canyons, but from space it looks very, very round.
I agree 100% with all of that.
Yeah, and I guess they're also not allowed to emit light because I guess that would make them a star. But yeah, it says here, if the object is so massive that it crushes together atoms and starts to glow, then it's no longer a planet, which I also would say that I agree with. But there was something in here that I thought was interesting, and that was how they detect these rogue planets. Because normally you can detect planets because they do orbit a star, and you can actually see how the gravity of the planet affects the star, because there's a little bit of like a tug and pull and a little bit of give and take. But you don't get that with rogue planets. With rogue planets, it's actually, you have to wait for one to pass in front of a known star and see how it affects the way we see the star. And you're like, well, something's weird with that star over there. And I guess it could mean that there is a planet passing in front of it, which I think is really cool. So Mara, what do you think about how these planets are observed? I think it's really, really fascinating.
It's another brain pretzel, because when you think about the enormity of space and just the idea that we can have eyes on so many parts of space all at the same time in order to even observe this happening. So, I mean, let alone it's a rare phenomenon, and then B, that we can observe it almost any time because there are so many different places studying space, so many different telescopes and long range probes, etc., things that we've sent out there gathering data. The idea that we've even found close to 20 of them is amazing. And I did a little research. The one that is closest to Earth, which don't get me wrong, it's not close, but it's the closest. There's been a back and forth about the idea that they were going to classify it as a brown dwarf, but then they're like, no, it's not, but it kind of resembles one. So, hi guys, I'm close to Earth. I'm the brown dwarf star, by the way, if that didn't click.
It definitely clicked to me, and I'm sure all the Schmoedown viewers at home. But yeah, I think the one thing in particular that I thought was most interesting is because when they said that they noticed these rogue planets because they pass in front of known stars, my immediate assumption was, oh, it's passing in front of the stars, so the light from the star probably gets like really dim, like almost like a solar eclipse type thing. But it actually turns out to be the opposite, where the brightness of the star actually increases. The rogue planet almost works as like a magnifying lens, they said in the article. So that was something that I didn't expect at all. My hypothesis, if you will, was the complete opposite. So I found that was really fascinating. Dwain, is there any little tidbits like that, things that you learned in this article about rogue planets that you thought were particularly interesting?
Not necessarily rogue planets, but when they got into talking about the next telescope that they're planning on launching, because like you were saying, the only way to observe these rogue planets is to see it in action as it's happening. And it's like, no one's going to watch one star. They're going to they're trying to watch them all now. And it's this new telescope is going to let us see like, it's like 100 times more of the sky at one time. And I was like, that is insane that we're going to be watching that much of the night sky. Well, not the night sky, but what we see at night in the sky. And I'm like, I would like to see that. That's what I want to see. Like, that would be so cool to get to just look at what the telescope is capturing.
Your hypothesis wasn't totally off in the sense that we perceive light here differently. Like the way that light behaves in space and the way gravity behaves in space is antithetical to everything we know here. So the good news is your hypothesis was based in your empirical knowledge of light. So the good news is I think that your scientific theory, though it didn't give you the answer you wanted, you still got an answer. So I think that's something. We're not always going to be right when we guess things as scientists. So, guess, speculate away, people.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, at the end of the day, that is science at its core. Like, ask questions and make a hypothesis, but your hypothesis doesn't have to be right, because like if you find out that your hypothesis was wrong, you either way, like you've still discovered what the answer is, so we're still learning science.
Yes, it's so awesome.
So yeah, I thought this article was a perfect opportunity to kind of talk about something in particular, which is rogue planets, which is something that maybe not a lot of people who aren't like in tune with like astronomy and like science, like they might not be fully aware of what a rogue planet is. So now hopefully one doesn't find its way causing chaos in our solar system, because I hear on a documentary that I watched one time that would be very bad.
Yeah.
Michael Bay is going to be making a movie about that coming 2023.
Oh, man. We need the James Cameron octopus jerk movie, and then we need the James Cameron rogue planet jerk movie.
I think that is perfectly put, and I think we might have to get Robert Parker on board here, because I now see him. He left a comment back when we were discussing sending Mara out with her scuba gear to find more, and he says, and now we go live to the field with Mara Knopic and obscure Japanese gummy candies. Yes. So that sounds right on brand to me.
It does.
So yeah, thank you to everyone watching. I see Robert Parker, Jake Yacovetta, Haskell 420. Thank you all for being here and joining us for this amazing discussion of science. So with all that being said, I think it's time that we wrap things up. But before I do, once again, any closing statements on any of the topics that we discussed today or about science in general from you, Mara or Dwain?
After you.
Just all I'll say is if you see a news story that interests you, read it and learn something. There's nothing wrong with learning something new every day, and it helps inform the decisions that we make overall in our lives from day to day. So thank you for joining us, and learn every day.
So, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away known as the American Midwest, I never had any interest in being an engineer of any kind. I was going to do exactly what family tradition dictated, which was be something that would make your Jewish parents very proud. And I ended up finding out that I loved it. So even if you think you know exactly what you want to do and you find something that is just like, oh, well, that's a thing, I'm very interested in that. I never thought, because I hadn't seen a lot of people that looked like me that were doing what I ended up doing. And look at this panel of people. We're three very different looking people from three very different parts of the world historically. And I do one kind of science. Brandon does another kind of science. Dwain does another kind of science. And all of us have this engineering focus in different fields. I think that, explore your passions. You never know. Maybe you'll end up being a civil engineer. I think streets are interesting. So maybe you could end up doing that, but explore.
Yeah, I think that's very well put. So thank you, Dwain and Mara. That's, explore, like Dwain said, read articles, like take an interest and like do what we're doing here. Have a conversation about it. That's what this is all about. We are learning and growing together. And that is I think what should be the main takeaway from this show is let's just all get together, learn about science, learn about ourselves, and find out what our passion and interest are, and try to make the world just a little bit of a better place along the way. So thank you once again for joining us for another episode of the Periodic Table. Dwain, let's start with you. Plug what you need to plug and let the good people know where they can find you online.
You can find me everywhere online, and I mean literally everywhere, at BurkeMade. It's the same no matter what platform you're looking on. If you search BurkeMade, you'll find me there. Please check out the Gucciverse coming in the new year, and then also go over on YouTube to a very Netflix Christmas musical live streaming now and watch it. Let me know what you think. I edited the entire thing together. It was a labor of love between myself, Max Haddad, Preston Maxwell Allen, Ed Precht, and Rachel Flynn. It is a lot of fun. Please check it out. And that's all I got to plug.
Okay, that's amazing. I'm going to follow it up with a very lackluster set of things. And then I'm on Twitter at @thatmara. I have an Instagram that I don't understand how to use. So if you have tips or tricks, please send them to me because I'm old. I'm also I help produce some of the content that's on Dan Murrell's YouTube channel, youtube.com/Dan Murrell Movies. And he's also on Patreon, of which I lurk there frequently. So if you ever want to check out some of the things going on behind the curtain, patreon.com/Dan Murrell.
Awesome. Yes, guys, definitely go support Mara, go support Dan, go support Dwain. There's just so many great people making great content online today, and they all deserve your love. And thank you so much for being here to show me some love and show Dwain and Mara some love talking about science today. And yeah, we will be back next week. And I'm going to close this show the way I close every show. Thank you for taking time out of